Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today entitled Best Practices Suggestions. This is a webinar of the Eastern Region Training and Technical Assistance Center, and we are a resource from the Administration for Native Americans. My name is Robert Parisian. I'm the training specialist for the Eastern Region Training and Technical Assistance Center, and will be presenting today. Proposal writing. The importance of reading the entire Funding Opportunity Announcement, or FOA, cannot be overstated. Each section of the FOA has important information that you, as a grant writer or program person, must be totally aware of. Otherwise, the information that's in that FOA would not be put into the final official notice of funding opportunity. And in actuality, that's truly what a FOA is. Once that's published, which it hasn't been yet, it is the final official notice of what needs to go into your grant application. Every section of the funding opportunity announcement has something important for you to know in relationship to your grant application. So please read the entire thing and then read it again and highlight areas of critical importance to your application development and ultimately the submission of your proposal. One of the reasons I mention this about reading the entire document is the last couple of years, if you were writing for language, if you had not read the entire funding opportunity announcement, you would have noticed that on page 5 of the FOA, it listed that they wanted to know the current status of the native language, but nowhere in the scoring section did you find that information. Without that information, it's pretty tough to write a problem statement if you do not know what your current status of your native language is. So each section has something very important for you to read. Don't wait to begin writing your application. If you have not already started, please do so. Although the FOA has not been published to date, it is important to start writing your application addressing questions that were required in last year's FOA. Since the FOA has not been published and we do not know whether there will be any changes to the FOA, you can still begin writing to your application. If the FOA does change, and if history is any measure, it more than likely will, you will at least have a good start on your application, and any changes that may come about because of the publication of the FOA will hopefully only be minor. Regardless of any changes, it is better to have something down now so you do not have to start from scratch when the funding opportunity announcements are published. Writing your own grant for proposal writing. Write your own grant with assistance from people who know your community well. It is best to not write the grant in a bubble. In other words, ensure that you have a diverse section of your community involved who not only know the community, but also will be an important part of your project being a success. For example, tribal leaders, functional leaders, stakeholders and beneficiaries, tribal or organizational programs that will be assisting you, and any partners that you plan on working with the project. Oftentimes, a professional grant writer will not know all the issues faced by your community or the importance of what you really want to accomplish within your community. When writing the grant, ensure that you include the financial people as well. They play a very important role in helping you to develop your budget and understand the fiscal responsibilities. Begin developing a rapport with your finance people from the beginning of your grant from the beginning of writing your grant all the way to the very end of the implementation phase. They have much more insight into costs such as salary schedules of your organization or tribe, fringe benefits, equipment thresholds, and purchasing procedures. in relationship to whether a bid may be required or not for items requested in the budget. They also have experience with federal spending and the allowability requirements of costs. Another thing to be aware of is to have a clear idea of what you want to accomplish. What types of impacts do you want to achieve with your project? What changes will make things better for your community if you are successful in your project idea? And what types of deliverables do you anticipate having with your application? All of this information is critical before even beginning to write the grant. Proposal planning. Involvement of the community in your grant application is one of the most critical elements of grant applications that are often the most overlooked in applications. Ensure there is community involvement in your grant and follow the lead of your community. Listen to them. Document every meeting you have with the community to show the reviewers that your community was involved in planning your application, and this was the idea that they wanted brought forth for review. Although it is important to ensure the tribal leaders are behind your project, it is equally important that the community is behind your project. This ensures ownership by the community and also ensures that when funded, you have community support for the implementation phase. Let them guide your project, which will mean that it is in line with what the community wants and needs, and that they will be there as either volunteers or participants, depending on what type of project you decide to run. Now, all communities are faced with numerous problems and needs that must be addressed to ensure healthier communities. In selecting the problem or need that your community wants to address, be cognizant of the fact that it must be something that can be accomplished by your organization during the project period and lead to realistic change in that condition. Also be aware of the importance of the community in ultimately achieving that change. Rely on the community for not only getting the project ideas, but developing the project ideas as well as the activities, as they truly are the best source for understanding what you want to get done and will assist you in attaining long-term sustainability for your project. Work with the community to identify the project need. Then you won't have to deal with lack of volunteer commitment or community involvement during implementation. Ensure that the project you do select, that truly is a need in your community. Has a survey been done? Does the project have the potential to be the success? Is it something that can be realistically completed by the project with funds requested and the time asked for? In other words, you really need to consider whether the project you're writing for is feasible and something that your community feels is of vital importance to be addressed. And you need to show it in your application to the reviewers. Involve stakeholders in the project design. Now, stakeholders are beneficiaries in A&A terminology, are those people that you hope to serve by your project. So that would be who you would identify as community. Obviously, you would also utilize the overall community, but if you're just using a subset, those stakeholders are the community that you're serving. Proposal planning. Conduct extensive and detailed planning and research. Another critical area that I see that is probably the most often overlooked is the importance of project planning prior to even developing your project. There are many details and much planning that go into the application before it can even be written. Conduct extensive and detailed planning and research in the development of your project. Information you're going to look for during this planning process are what kind of personnel are going to be needed, What amount of funding levels are necessary for success? Have all of your partners been identified? Have all your partners been contacted and agreements put in place? Has a leveraged resource target been set? And finally, what is the ultimate goal and the outcomes of your project? Without planning and research, writing the proposal will be very time-consuming. Conduct research prior to proposal submission to ensure all contingencies are covered and all project components are in place. Find the right partners by doing research before your project begins. Additionally, planning requires that you understand the skill sets of your current staff and any proposed staff that you may have. You need to also incorporate participant assets into the project design. What is it that your beneficiaries, stakeholders, participants really want to achieve? And is this a project that they will actually attend if it's funded? So you need to really check with your participants to ensure. Projects must be designed to be flexible and adaptable to partner needs. Ensure that there are committed individuals in the community to assist you in project implementation and in any kind of volunteerism that may be needed. Identify potential staff, if possible, prior to submitting your application. Have a clear and realistic understanding of your budget and cost estimates prior to submitting the application. And remember to always request enough funds to successfully accomplish your project. If you are awarded less than what you request, work with A&A staff to reduce the number of project activities and the objectives to fit the new budget. All of these items that we've just gone over are really critical in the proposal planning stage. If you do these in advance, you're not going to end up having a serious issue with crisis management trying to submit your application 2 weeks or write your applications even 2 weeks before the deadline date. And as I stated earlier, since the funding opportunity announcement is not out, we do not know what the deadline date for submission will be. Another issue that comes up is don't overwrite. It is of vital importance when writing to your application that you do not overwrite to certain components. There are many components or critical elements that belong in an A&A application, and their placement in the right component is also important. One area that is often overwritten to is the problem statement. Many writers make the mistake of focusing 8 to 10 pages on the problem the organization is facing and the entire set of negative conditions that exist. Although the problem statement is one important portion of the application, it is only one small component of the application, and by inserting a 10-page narrative on it, it only causes you to have to limit your responses to other components because you've overwritten to the problem statement. Know the full well and ensure that when writing to scoring components that you only write enough information to ensure the reviewers know what your problem statement is and the causes for this problem in your community. Additionally, many grant writers put much information on the organization's historic trauma issues, sometimes often relating information from the beginning of time to present. Although this oftentimes makes for some very compelling information, it does not assist you in getting a higher score. Again, limit your writing to what is essential for the reviewers to know about, both in terms of the problem and specific demographics related to that problem. And please understand that the reviewers are more than aware of all the negative issues that we as Native people have faced and continue to face even today. Write to the components. always ensure that you write to the components of the funding opportunity announcement. Each component has a specific score assigned to it and a set of questions that must be addressed by you, the applicant, under each component or criteria. Since the funding opportunity announcement hasn't been published yet, I'm calling the criteria components because I don't know what the funding opportunity announcement is going to say. But when you do write to the funding opportunity, you will always write to section 4.2 of the FOA, which is the Administration for Children and Families Uniform Project Descriptors, or UPD. Every grant written within ACF must adhere to the UPD format, and that also includes ANA. However, under the criteria in section 5.1 upon which you are scored, you must address the specific questions that the reviewers are being asked in scoring and rating your application. However, you must always cross-reference section 4.2 with section 5.1 when writing the application so you can ensure that your placement of UPD requirements are in the correct criteria. The UPD really is designed for you to understand the formatting requirements and what ACF and ANA want to see. Now, although there are a number of components, each with a different score assigned to it and a different set of requirements under that component, it must be noted that each of these components and requirements all must align to achieve one all-inclusive grant application that tells your story within the parameters set by the ANA funding opportunity announcement. Think of all of these components that you're going to see in the funding opportunity announcement as pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and that if any pieces are missing, you do not have a complete picture of what it is you want to accomplish. If any pieces are missing, you will almost certainly lose points for those missing pieces. Once again, write to the components and tell your story, and remember that even though different point values are assessed to each component, no one component is more important than the other, and that the finished application should be one cohesive document that includes all the components and specific requirements or questions for each of those components and tells your story about the need for funding and why you're submitting this application. Again, remember that all pieces must be included, and in order to put those pieces together, you must thoroughly know the funding opportunity announcement, and you must read it in its entirety. Of importance to note when writing the proposal is that the requirements or critical elements of each component have a very close relationship to each other. Some critical elements of importance to focus on are your community long-range goal, your problem statement, project goals, strategy, and the objective work plan, as well as the budget. To give you a better understanding of what we mean by close relationship, the problem statement is really the catalyst that caused your organization to write the grant and was determined by some issue that was listed in your community long-range goals. In other words, the problem statement is why you are writing the grant due to the community concerns delineated in the long-range goals. So your problem statement is the why. The project goal is what you are going to do to rectify the problem and alleviate or eliminate the community's long-range goal and create that better situation in your community that your community desires. The strategy and the OWP are your action plan and the process you plan on achieving your project goal. So in other words, your strategy or your OWP together are how you're going through what objectives and activities that you're going to accomplish your project goal to overcome the problem statement and to ultimately achieve your community's long-range goal. A strong relationship between these requirements and critical elements must clearly be shown in your application. So just to kind of reiterate that, your problem statement is why you're even writing that application. It's an important issue within your entire community. Your project goal is what you hope to accomplish to overcome that problem statement, and it's what you're going to do. And your narrative strategy and OWP are how you're going to accomplish it. The budget is nothing more than the dollar cost to achieve all of the activities and the objectives that you have written in your strategy and your objective work plan. Another important issue to be concerned with is to make every attempt possible to never utilize filler, puff and fluff, just to reach the page limitation listed in the funding opportunity announcement. Puff and fluff is defined as information that has no purpose in the application other than to take up space and that has no relevance to the actual application. In other words, it is narrative that does not affect your score one way or another. It is not part of the requirements under the A&A components. If you can succinctly describe your project and address all components without needing the entire page limitation that has been set by the FOA, then please do so. However, never exceed the page limitation. Proposal scope. Proposal scope is determined by your strategy to achieve your project goal. As stated, the strategy or approach you intend to take to achieve your project goal is the how you plan to do it portion of your application. As such, it is the component that contains the most requirements and requires the most amount of information to be included in it. A large portion of your narrative should focus on this component as it details exactly what your strategy is to accomplish your goal to overcome the problem statement. Take care to create a realistic and achievable project goal. As mentioned earlier, that project goal is what you are going to do during the life of your project and should clearly show a relationship to the problem statement and the community long-range goal. The project goal is the foundation of your application, and once determined, everything you write in your application after determining that goal has one purpose, and that is to achieve your project goal. Keep your objectives manageable and focused. By manageable, we are really referring to doable, both within the time frames established by your project, as well as something you can truly accomplish to achieve your goal. Remember, the strategy and OWPs are how you are going to achieve your project goal, to overcome your problem, and ultimately to achieve your community's long-range goal. Once again, it's really important to state that you need to remember that a strong relationship must exist between your objectives and activities in relationship to your project goal and your problem statement. All the components and pieces of your application must fit together to present one cohesive, well-thought-out application. The OWP is the blueprint for your project. However, it does not allow you to provide enough information or really the specifics, the intricacies of what each activity is intended to do and how it fits into the picture so that of your narrative approach and strategy. So that's the whole intent of your narrative approach, is to provide the readers with enough information so that they see that clear picture of what your OWPs intend to accomplish in terms of results and benefits expected and the ultimate impacts your project will have within your community. Oftentimes, as TNTA providers, we see that many applications tend to overestimate what they can do in the time frame requested and with the money they have available to them. Ensure that you thoroughly think out your project in these terms so that your project is clearly achievable. Don't overestimate what you can achieve just to look good in the application. Don't pack too much into your project if it's something you really can't do. When I do trainings, I often say, don't shoot for the moon if really all you can do, if your vertical is only about a ½ inch. So tend to really consider what you're doing so that the reviewers understand that it truly is achievable. Project design, partners. Use resources from your tribe and then determine if other tribes can also be your partners. Partnerships play a big role in assisting in sustainability as well as credibility for your project. Remember that other tribal programs within your own tribe can be partners with your project. There's only one caveat that exists with any partners that you plan on listing in your application. They must be providing you with something tangible, either in resources or services, that will assist you in achieving your stated goals and objectives. Partnerships can be either formal or informal. Formal normally relates to memorandums of understanding, memorandums of agreement, and informal are nothing more than commitment letters that you would get stating that they would provide the following to you. Oftentimes, it's recommended that you look for the informal partnerships because a lot of partners feel that MOUs or MOAs might have legal repercussions. So to make it ease them into your project, just ask them for a commitment letter. Build partnerships early and learn who the key players are within each of those partners. Know who to invite to the process. This statement underscores the importance, once again, of planning your project out early so you're not trying to find partners with 1 week to go before the application due date. Once you have determined your project goal, find partners who have the same sort of goal in mind and who will be of major importance to your project. Partner and collaborate with programs of a similar mission to learn best practices. Get on the phone, do internet searches and research who is doing similar things in your tribe, your city, your county, your state, and nationally, so you can get as many partners as possible to assist you in presenting a strong application. Always make a partnership a win-win situation and ensure that open communication channels are developed at the get-go so that potential partners know that they will always be in the loop with you. Be willing to share any deliverables that you do develop. Project design, staffing. Work with and hire a dedicated and motivated staff that will not waver in their commitment to the project goal. Ensure that job descriptions include qualifications that openly show that the person hired for any of the positions you are asking for in the application, that they have the skills and abilities to accomplish those tasks listed in the OWP and job description. Find a project director that is dedicated to the administrative side of project implementation, including time cards, scheduling, logistics, meetings, marketing, partnership development. Rather than them only being focused on the programmatic side. In order to deal with staff turnover, make sure that all staff provides materials and trainings for transition so that if someone leaves, the new person will be prepared. In other words, do cross-training and ensure that any training that they receive, all materials are kept on file so that they're available for any new staff that come on board. And it would be a good idea, I think, to even list that in your application, that that's how you would handle that contingency should it come about. Ensure stable staffing pattern by hiring qualified, passionate, and culturally knowledgeable personnel. To ensure project activities are accomplished, write them into the responsible staff person's annual performance plan. Project design, community support. Community support is not only critical to your application during the planning phase, where community involvement and documentation is necessary under one of the components of the application. It's also critical for the strategy and narrative approach session that your community is supporting you during the implementation phase. Ensure you have community support, especially if you are a small tribe. Ownership by the community in the project ensures success of the project. Ensure you have FaceTime with people and not just emails and phone calls. It's always better to do a direct contact. Schedule activities in the OWP that show that community involvement activities are a routine part of your project. Always create an atmosphere of communication and collaboration by including the community in the implementation process. Pursue outreach activities such as informational community meetings. Conduct a preliminary survey in the community where you will implement the project to ensure there is no opposition. Market your project not only when you're initially funded, but at all social events held in the community, including powwows. Provide incentives for project involvement and participation, such as gift certificates, hotel nights, free daycare for project events, gas vouchers, whatever it may take to ensure that your participation and community involvement is available and it stays constant throughout the life of your project. Maintain humility in conversation with the community members and continue to strive to serve the community rather than impose your own ideas upon the community. Let the community know that they have ownership of this project. Project design, administration. Find ways of overcoming any obstacles that may exist with your project. Be aware that Murphy's Law is an actuality. Problems will happen, so expect them. Make sure infrastructure is in place before undertaking your project so that they can be aware and handle any contingencies that might come up. Also, take tribal elections into account and ensure that you're aware that this could potentially cause some issues if a new administration comes into place. Use tools for strategic planning that are accessible and understandable to staff, such as Gantt charts. Manage volunteers as if they were paid staff. Be organized with their schedules and planning their daily activities. But more importantly, make sure everyone stays busy. As a volunteer, no volunteer likes to come in and sit around and do nothing. If they're committed to be volunteers, please ensure that you have plenty of work for them to do. Be respectful of their time. Be flexible and adaptable as an agency. Be able to reinvent yourself quickly. Record keeping and project documentation are vital to your project. Treat elders as experts and allow them their say to set the path for the project implementation, and ultimately keeping you on a level plane with the overall community. Elders are really our functional leaders within our Native communities, and by functional leaders, they're not elected leaders. They're the folks that people go and see to talk to gain wisdom and knowledge on different ideas. And believe me, those elders are very important when you're working with them within your communities. Also be open to criticism to make your project better. Know your community well and how it works. What are the processes? What has worked in the past? And outreach through the media. Financial management. Always have an accountant as part of your project team. This is where a lot of projects get into problems, or even applicants when developing their budget, in that they're not quite sure what are allowable costs or how to document and manage non-federal shares, bids for equipment and services, contracts, whatever it may be. Always have that accountant there who is going to be able to assist you so that you're not struggling to do a budget when they know exactly what needs to be done based on what kind of activities you have and past costs from other grants and their own personnel expenses. Document expenditures at every level, not only in finance, but program people. When you have volunteers and they're volunteering and charging time, make sure you have a documented form available that you will document the time that they put into the project, particularly or especially if they're providing non-federal share, match, or in-kind services. It's very important that this information is kept available within your project, and that you also let the reviewers know that this is something that you have thought about and have well planned out. Marketing. Always build marketing activities into your project. Do not be afraid to pat yourself on the back and let the community know when your project has successes. Equally important is to also let your project know, or let your community know, when you're having issues, to see if anybody has the expertise or the experience to come in and help you. Marketing is designed for one purpose. It's to keep your community not only informed and involved, but to keep your project in the forefront of whatever you're doing. I'm now going to turn it over to Rondell for questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Robert, for the good information. I am going to unmute everybody. You can either type your questions into me using the question function in your menu, or you can go ahead. Take me a little bit longer than I wanted to unmute everybody, but there we go. We got a couple people unmuted. You can raise your hand and ask a question as well. If you raise your hand, I'll unmute you, and then we won't have a lot of feedback on the line. We don't have any other questions. then I want to wish you all a very happy holidays. We hope that you have a very Merry Christmas and that the new year is healthy, happy, and prosperous for both you and your family. One little plug that we would like to put in, we do have a Facebook page which we keep up to date with all our latest trainings and that kind of thing. So Facebook is ANA Eastern Region TNTA Center. Look us up on Facebook and like us. Join our little family. We would love to have you. Okay, got one question. You caught me just in time. I was about ready to sign off. The question, Robert, can you include food and refreshments for language classes? Well, since we've lost Robert, I will tell you, yes, you can. As long as you tie the food and refreshments to your project, to the classes, to the children, to meetings that you may be holding with the community, you'll be just fine. All righty then. Oops. I know why Robert didn't answer. I muted him. Sorry, Robert. Okay. If there aren't any questions, again, Merry, Merry Christmas to you all. We will be having our next webinar will be in January. It's going to be on long-term impact. We have a guest facilitator, Mr. Dan Van Otten. So we look forward to working with you in 2013. Take care, everyone. Oh, the Facebook. Somebody just asked about Facebook. See, I try to get us off. It's ANA Eastern TTA Center. ANA Eastern Region, sorry, TNTA Center. Merry Christmas, everybody. Bye-bye.